Hey everyone, it's me, Arthur Kade, and tonight we're on the red carpet for the premiere of HBO's All the Way. We'll be chatting with Bryan Cranston, Anthony Mackie, and more, so get ready for a great night behind the velvet rope. Bryan Cranston, are you getting tired of getting nominated for all these awards? Because you're getting an Emmy nomination for this one.
Come on, you're jumping the gun. Who knows? I don't think about any of that. This is a great story. That's why we're here. Truly, that's what attracts me. It's not even a character. It's the story of this man, as troubled as he was, as great as he was, as ambitious as he was. He got through the Civil Rights Act of 1964 within 6 months of taking office. That is a mind blower. This landmark legislation that changed the face of our country forever was done in 6 months. That story just gripped me. Then it was Robert Schenken who wrote it and supported that story. And only then did I go to the character and go, and the character, my God, Shakespearean. So with all those check marks off, and then going and seeing Jay Roach to direct it, I was just going, hope nobody takes this away from me. It truly was that.
It's fascinating to see LBJ's relationship with MLK, and it's one, having been born in 1978, I didn't realize. Talk to me about that relationship. What drew these men together?
Can I tell you a little story first?
Yeah, you can tell me whatever you want, Bryan.
1963, my mother and father were taking my brother and I, and my little sister who was 1. We're going on a car trip to Texas, and when we got to Texas from California, my mother turned over in our station wagon and said, "Boys, I need to tell you this. I'm 6 years old. In Texas, if you see a drinking fountain that says colored, don't drink out of it." Well, to a 6-year-old, I'm thinking, what color is it? I've got to see this color. Is it purple? Is the water flavored? I'm like, yes! I was so excited, and I'm looking everywhere. I never found one. But the fact that she had to tell me that, of course, 40 years later, 30 years later, whatever, it really has a dramatic effect on me. I understood earlier what that meant, but not until now do you go, in my lifetime, this is how our own citizens were treated. In my lifetime. So it wasn't hard for me to wrap my head around it or embrace the fact that what story we're trying to tell here happened in relatively recent history. And this is what's going on. And there are remnants of that still going on.
This is so important for people to see because most people obviously know about the Civil Rights Act, but they don't know about the nuts and bolts that went into getting this thing passed. And we see the relationship with LBJ and MLK and what it took. Talk to me about telling this story and what people need to get out of it.
Well, the great thing about this movie and about this story is the art of compromise. I feel like right now we're in a gridlock society where people don't understand you have to give a little to get a little. Everybody wants it all. Mine, 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 mine. But nobody is willing to compromise. And the great thing about MLK and LBJ, they were willing to compromise because they knew the greater good.
One of the things I like about this take on MLK is we see him more as the politician here, the negotiator. Talk to me about creating that portrayal. What did you want to get right when you took on MLK?
Well, what was most important for me was, Dr. King was revolutionary. He was radical in his approach to change. And a lot of people forget that. You forget the speech he gave about the labor unions. You forget the speech he gave about civil rights. You forget the March on Washington. You forget all these things that were at the time monumental occasions. And I feel like a passive MLK, a reactionary MLK, that all those things would never happen. So it was important to me to portray him as the MLK I knew. And that was a very deliberate, very specific, a very active MLK.
So Coretta Scott King, talk about taking on an icon. How do you prepare to play someone who much of this country, much of the world knows? How do you prepare as an actress for that?
The first thing I did was read her book, which she wrote immediately after Dr. King was assassinated. And I read a lot about her. I started doing research. I ran into Eric Michael Dyson actually at the premiere in LA, and I said, I read your book when I was working on preparing for her. And she did, and thank goodness for YouTube, we have a lot of interviews with her. But at a certain point, it gets down to what's in the script, and based on what I know from my research and what's in the script, how do I bring my imagination to this and try to portray her as truthfully as possible?
Why do you keep working with this guy? What's going on?
I don't know. It's like an addiction or something. I can't quit him. I can't quit him.
He's one of the best thespians on the planet.
He's an incredible actor. And he, you know, these two characters actually, Trumbo was sort of larger than life, and LBJ is definitely larger than life, but still complex and tortured and sometimes even self-pitying and incredibly capable. You know, so all those adjectives, only a guy like Cranston can pull that off.
You've had such great success with political dramas. Why was this story important for you to tell?
I thought it was interesting to remember how much Johnson accomplished in those early years. We think of Vietnam, he's stuck between JFK and Nixon, so you kind of forget what he accomplished. And that he took on the Civil Rights Bill of '64 after the assassination and risked his own election the following November was incredible.
Why was this story so important to tell?
Well, I think, you look at where we are today and what's going on right now. I like to think of All the Way as kind of the origin story for 2016.
I like that.
And it's also, there is an optimistic quality to this where people could get together and government could function and actually make things better for people. Well, we can still do that if we put our minds to it.
That's awesome. Cranston, not a bad actor, is he? Guy's not too bad.
Oh my God! Look at that transformation. It's complete.
This movie, so influential, so important, an important story. Talk to me about being here to support what MLK and LBJ were able to do.
Well, it's so funny because I do a lot of research on the topic and on African American history. So it's just cool to see actors that I've seen before just attack characters people that we know. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to play Billy and her not be a character a person that everybody knows.
Right.
So to attack a
icon.
An icon, exactly. Thank you. Hey,
I got the Deuce coming over here. I'll do it together. So the Deuce. We're talking about being here to support this wonderful movie. So before I get to the Deuce, this is such an important piece of history. Talk to me about being able to support what LBJ and MLK did.
Well, as I mentioned earlier to someone who asked me a question, that it would be very interesting to see a different angle as far as the story that we think we all know. Hopefully we get a greater depth of understanding. And it also is a great example of what happens when people become mobilized. The power that we actually hold as citizens to affect government when we hold their feet to the fire.